5. For many people, Yoga Sutra can be difficult to understand. Could you share what Yoga Sutra is all about in few words or sentence?
Yeah. Our Guruji, Pattabhi Jois, would always say that the Yoga Sutras were small words with big meanings. And you can read through the Yoga Sutras and you can really interpret the sutras in many different ways. Even the first sutra, which is Atta Yoga Nushasanam, which is now yoga begins. And that could be interpreted to mean, well, now we're going to begin discussing the Yoga Sutras. Or you could interpret it as yoga happens in the now, right? So even the first sutra itself, if you were to meditate on that one sutra, then you would start to uncover a much deeper meaning within that. I think sometimes people will make the mistake of consuming a lot of philosophy. They'll read a lot of different books. They'll continue taking new courses. I'm going to go to this workshop. I'm going to go to this retreat. And that's not always necessary. If we were to take the time to really meditate deeply on just one sutra or one phrase, then we can start to extract a much deeper meaning from that. The second sutra states that yoga happens when the mind becomes calm, that yoga is chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta means mind, vritti means turning, that the mind is always turning, it's going from this thing to that thing. And that yoga happens when the mind actually rests in its own true state. And what we start to recognize is that yoga is a natural state. It's not something extraordinary. It's not something that's only for like the guru or the enlightened master. It's actually something that every person can experience if they're able to find that calm. I think we have many times in our lives that we find that, sometimes walking in nature, maybe having time with your friend or your loved one, that time seems to stop, right? That you're just in that timeless moment with that person. These are little glimpses of what yoga is. And I think that what's really great about yoga as a technology is that we start to learn that, oh, I can actually practice this. I can practice finding that calm. So I don't need to go out into nature. I don't need to have a retreat or an extraordinary experience. I can just sit with myself and breathe, and I can experience the yoga itself. So my recommendation for people is to pick up the Yoga Sutra. It's my favorite book on yoga. It's very old, thousands of years old, but it's also very clear, and there's a certain simplicity within that. The Yoga Sutra was the first time that yoga was really established as like a system of self-development. Before the Yoga Sutra, there was a lot of theory and philosophy about yoga, and a lot of maybe masters saying that you just have to feel it, you just have to experience it. And while I don't disagree with that, I do believe that there's a practice that's there. And so the Yoga Sutra really does establish the practice of yoga. It says there are 8 limbs, there are 8 parts to yoga. That it's not like a ladder, it's not like we're climbing this ladder of yoga. It happens, it's all kind of a level field, it's all happening at the same time. That you can practice things like morality, right? Being a more moral person, being a more patient, compassionate person. And you can practice yoga postures and yoga breathing. You can practice meditation. And you don't have to go in any specific order. These things happen all at the same time. And that natural state of meditative bliss arises from any of those 4 practices. For example, if you practice just compassion, so everyone that we meet out on the street, every person that we encounter, if we practice being more compassionate with those people, then we start to experience a deeper bliss in yoga. No asanas are required, no breathing is required, just that one practice. And so this is a really important aspect of yoga that we can start to understand that just by practicing one thing very well, we'll start to give insight into all things.
Number 6, what's the difference or the relationship between yoga and other sports? How practicing yoga will help people perform better in other sports?
Well, yoga in itself is not even a physical practice, which is kind of interesting. Yoga's sister science of Ayurveda is much more focused on the physical, right? It's actually a system for physical well-being. But I think, and yoga is considered to be a mental practice. So Ayurveda for the body and yoga for the mind. This is the traditional categories of how yoga is described. But of course, in modern times, yoga is very much considered to be a physical practice. And I think that most of us are drawn to the physical aspects of yoga. We want to improve our fitness, we want to improve our body pain, that kind of thing. So yoga certainly has those applications. And in fact, in sports, we see now that all professional athletes are doing some type of yoga practice. Even like gym activities, right? If you were to go to a fitness class, they would still incorporate aspects of yoga. And I think that the future of fitness is going to look a lot more like yoga. It seems in the fitness world that they're talking a lot more about mindfulness now. They're talking a lot more about breathing, which is interesting because the ancient yogis figured that out thousands of years ago. They understood the mind-body connection. That in fact, the mind is a part of the body, that there is no separation. And I think more and more mainstream athletes are also recognizing this. So we see in children, for example, and I know that you're teaching children as well, we see that children really love yoga because it gives them like a physical activity that's not competitive, right? Where maybe if you're doing a normal sport like basketball or soccer, there's some competition. And some children really thrive in competition, they really enjoy it. But not all children do, right? Some children feel very intimidated. They don't want to lose. They don't want to be in that competitive environment. And there's other things like martial arts, right? Karate or Kung Fu, that children can participate in, and they can learn a lot about the mind-body connection. They can learn basics of meditation. But not all children would want to compete in martial arts because they don't want to fight, right? They're intimidated by that. But what we see with yoga is that it becomes a non-competitive, non-violent type of sport that you can do it by yourself or you can do it with others. It's something that you can share with people or you can do it just as a solo practice. So my children, for example, have began practicing yoga. It's something that they've both taken an interest in. I've tried to model that for them. I've tried to always show them my yoga practice. I try to do it when they're there so that they can see me practicing. I want them to see that it's something that I do and it's something that's very important for my life. But I think that children are very drawn to that. I think adults are as well, but I think that children are always a good indicator because they're so honest, right? They're so open and honest. And children do things because they want to, not because they feel like they have to. But we've seen, just back to your original question about how sports can help with athletic performance, I think that it can improve the physical aspect in terms of injury prevention. Obviously, when the body is more supple, we're more resilient and injury-proof. But even with things like balance, right? Maybe if you were to walk down the street and twist your ankle, or fall down, if you've been practicing yoga, you'll know how to fall gracefully. Or maybe if you do fall, you're less likely to become injured because you've been practicing these types of movements already. So your body is more resilient with that. So there's a physical benefit, but also the mental benefit. Many athletes struggle because when they're in a high pressure situation, they're in the game or the heat of the moment, that pressure can be too intense for them and they'll start to melt because of that. Where yoga teaches that mental resilience, the simple things that you and I do every day, like checking back in with breathing. If you're an athlete and you have some access to that I can just breathe deeply, then you're able to begin calming the mind, calming the nervous system, and chances are you're going to perform at a higher level.
Gratitude is constantly mentioned in yoga practice. What is the relationship between yoga and gratitude? And how can we practice gratitude in daily life?
You know, I think the idea of gratitude is actually more of like a modern concept, but the principle behind gratitude is called sankalpa. Sankalpa means intention, right? Your intention for your daily life. There's actually two words. There's sankalpa, which means intention, and then there's vikalpa, which means divided intentions. That a lot of people live a life of vikalpa. That means they have no intention for their daily life. They wake up and whatever happens, happens to them. And usually we're reacting to whatever happens. Oh no, this happened, so I have to react to that. And so what we start to recognize through practicing sankalpa and setting intention is that when I can set my intention for the day and set my intention for my life, then I can begin to create what I want in my life. And for me, I believe this is what gives us some type of free will, that of course things are going to happen in our lives, but the control that we have is actually our attitude and how we see things. So for me personally, I begin every day with gratitude. It's the first thing that I do. As soon as I open my eyes, as soon as I wake up, I immediately begin practicing this gratitude. I'm grateful for the comfortable bed that I was sleeping in. I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for waking up. I'm grateful for my health. All of these things. In fact, I try to find the most small things that I can be grateful for. I really try to become skillful at finding things to be grateful for. But it really changes the attitude of how we see the world around us. And the truth is that, probably the people who are watching this video, you and I, we have many things to be grateful for. We're in a very good position in our lives that we can actually take time for ourselves, to be selfish, to practice yoga. All of these things mean that we have enough. We have enough resources, we have enough food, we have enough money, that kind of thing, that we can actually practice yoga. For people who do not have enough basic resources, they're not able to practice yoga typically because, well, they're focused on surviving, right? They're focused on where their next meal is coming from. So not everyone is in that luxurious position. Similarly, we'll see people who really take for granted all of the many things they have in life. People will spend so much time complaining, right? There's an expression, first world problems, which means it's not a real problem, but I'm perceiving it as a problem. So we spend so much time in idle gossip. I think in Chinese you say bagua, right? We spend so much time in this bagua. We spend so much time just gossiping because we don't really have problems in our lives. So we start to create problems in our lives. We start to create dramas in our lives. And it's such a waste of energy. One of the classic practices is called karma yoga. Karma means action. That means what we're doing in this world. And are those positive actions or those negative actions? Are we living a life in which we're giving to others and we're contributing to others' well-being? Or are we taking from others, right? Are we trying to pull from others? And unfortunately, I think a lot of people suffer just because of that, just because their attention is so divided. They don't really know what they want. They don't understand their life's purpose. So they're always creating some type of drama for themselves just to feel. I'm sure they're just trying to feel something. They just want to feel alive. So they create this drama in their lives just to feel alive. But unfortunately, that's not a very healthy way of being. So simple practice like giving thanks for what we have completely shifts how we focus on our daily life. If you begin with an attitude of gratitude and you walk out into the street, then chances are you're going to be more kind and compassionate. You're going to be more thoughtful and caring toward others that you meet. But if you're not beginning with the attitude of gratitude, then probably you're going to walk out to the life and you're going to see things as happening to you. You're going to feel like a victim to your circumstances. So I don't know if we have any real free will. I'm not sure if we can really control things that happen in our life. But I do believe that our free will is in our point of view, how we see things.
好，我们接下来3题呢，就是他比较算是大家好奇的，就是好，我们来看老师他有什么想法。OK，